Let's start with a very short note on who I am. So I'm Tanguy. The story started 51 years ago in Brussels. And then I've been around a little bit in Europe, mostly for my studies and then for work. I started my career in automotive industry, worked 3 years at Volvo Cars, for example, and then made some decisions that were maybe not the right ones, but it doesn't matter. I have been through different parts of my career. I've been a branding and packaging designer at some point, a product designer, and the products range from pet food packaging and beer bottles all the way to phone, kolobieżki, urinals, toilet paper holders. And for the last 10 years, I've been working in Brno in PPE, personal protective equipment. So basically stuff that protects the workers at work, like respiratory protection, so different kinds of respirators for people who work in hazardous environments, hearing protection to protect against the noise, fall protection systems so that you can work on a telecom tower at 100 meters from the ground, and if you slip, you don't die immediately. I'm only half joking, actually. You have 20 minutes to be rescued, and after that it's over. But at least I give you those 20 minutes. The cartoon here is a Belgian cartoon. Belgium considers itself as the capital of cartoons. And this one is that character, Le Chat, is very famous. And this cartoon says, if you don't know where you're going, go there anyway. And once you're there, ask where you are. And I think it kind of illustrates my path so far, at least until 10 years ago. I was pretty much doing that, going for things and finding out on the spot what's going on. And today we're going to talk about practical creativity, or the path towards creative problem solving. I will actually not show my designs because they are not really relevant. I'm going to talk about creativity and what it means, and what are the obstacles to creativity, and what are things that can help you be creative. And so, today I'm here in my own name. I don't represent any company, even though probably when we talk, I will bring examples from my former employers or my current employer, right? But I'm not representing anybody here. Actually, the only sponsor here is the university. You should be grateful to the university. I am. Okay. So agenda, we're going to first look at a couple of experiments. I have, of course, not invented or designed those experiments. They are famous team building things and stuff that we're going to look at, and we're going to look at what kind of findings we can draw from that about how people behave when they are confronted with a problem and they're trying to solve it creatively. Then I'm going to be discussing a few misconceptions about creativity, some kind of urban legends, what people tend to believe that creativity is, or people who believe that they are not creative and things like that. I'm going to break those misconceptions one after another. Then we're going to look at those tools that help be creative, the kind of tools that I'm using at work to come up with ideas and solve my problems. I have a lot of them, the problems, I mean. And then, of course, we're going to talk about artificial intelligence because we are in 2025, and that's becoming inevitable to look at that. And I'm going to look at it very shallowly because I, of course, don't have the expertise to go deep into the topic of artificial intelligence. I'm just going to bring some thoughts. Most of what I'm doing here is bring food for thought. One thing I always say to the students, you are at university, that means you are adults, right? You are allowed to drive, you are allowed to take a military service, you are allowed to vote. That means you are allowed to question everything I say, okay? You don't need to agree with me. I'm going to sleep tonight, no matter what, okay? I'm here to make you think and to have discussions with you. And maybe your comments and questions are going to help me by, bringing something I didn't think of yet. And then I'm going to learn something, and that's my goal, okay? And then the magic wand is something that I tend to use a lot, and I think a lot of people don't use or forget to use that. So that's my way of dealing with problems. Everybody follows? My accent is okay? Good. You see the screen? Everything is fine. Let's do this. So first, some experiments and the first insights we can draw from that. So I'm going to start with basically data that I took from this person, Tom Bouyets. It's a TED Talk. You can Google it someday, not right now, please. Build a tower, build a team. And he's talking about what he calls the marshmallow challenge. I call it the spaghetti challenge. It's the same thing. It's basically you have teams of 4 people and you give them some spaghetti, some tape, some rope, and a marshmallow. And you give them 18 minutes to build the highest possible tower or structure that can carry the marshmallow. The measurement, the success criteria is the distance between the marshmallow and the table, okay? And so let's have a look at how people do and what we can learn from that. Anybody has done that test before? You have. Good. How many centimeters did you achieve?
Oh, I forgot, but I think approximately 1.5 meter.
Wow.
I think that maybe meter.
Okay, we have some really good people in the room. I'm nervous now. Okay, so we have 18 minutes, okay, that's the brief. And what do people do during those 18 minutes? Each team has its own behavior because people are people. But this is like generally the data that we find. So for about 2.5 minutes, people introduce themselves, you know, my name is, and I'm from here, and I'm probably smarter than you, and these kind of things, right? And then they spend about 3 minutes and something planning. So what are we here for? Okay, we need to do that. Okay, so I'm going to cut the tape in those dimensions, in that many numbers, and blah, blah, blah. Maybe they sketch on a napkin or something. They're trying to plan what they're going to do to build that tower. Then they spend a good 10 minutes actually building the thing that they're trying to do based on their plan. And then usually towards the end, you have the moderator that goes like, watch out, 2 minutes left, watch out, 1 minute left, right? Time is ticking and people get nervous. And of course, they put the marshmallow on the thing and ta-da, 1 meter, amazing. Or, oops, the thing collapses because the marshmallow is much heavier than you think. At least spaghetti's underestimated the weight of marshmallow. And very often it just collapses. And then you have, if you're lucky, the marshmallow is not on the table. So you have 2 centimeters because some of the rubble below is holding it in the air. But it's not always very impressive. So let's have a look at not the exercise, but actually data. So what Tom Bouyets did is that he looked at basically statistical data on what happens, how many teams win, and so how many teams achieve something, etc. So what we see there is that typically out of 10 teams, 4 are completely failing. Like the marshmallow is on the table or two spaghettis laying under the marshmallow, right? But basically nothing's happening. And on average, 20 inches, 50 centimeters, that's usually what good teams achieve. Like if you achieve that, no shame, okay? And then, of course, there's some kind of curve in between. We're not going to need to care. So now, let's have a look at how different teams perform, right? Who achieves what in that, what kind of people achieve what. So we have an average, and then we have business school students, lawyers, kindergarten kids, like 4 or 5-year-old kids, right? Architects, engineers. I tend to believe that designers are among architects and engineers. Makes me feel good. And then CEOs and CEOs with an admin assistant. And the ones that are framed in red, we're going to look at a bit closer how and why they get there, okay? So problems in problem solving, observation is obviously tool number 1, right? So what do we observe? We observe that business students are not great at that game, and the observation is that they are trained at having a plan. Like they are trained at inventing a strategy, putting in place a to-do list and resources and, a big plan, and they are absolutely convinced that this is the way to win. And 6 times out of 10, they don't lose. But 4 times out of 10, they just don't it doesn't work. And the reason is that when you plan, if everything goes according to plan, that's one of my learnings in my 25 years of career. If everything goes according to plan, that means you're not doing anything interesting, okay? That means you're doing something the others have done before. If you're trying to challenge someone or yourself, something is gonna go wrong. That's totally okay. You just, you can fall as many times as you want, as long as you stand up more often than falling, okay? That's the only thing. So those guys are trained at having a plan, and when it goes wrong, they don't know how to react. And anyway, they find out, have you seen on the timeline, it's at the minute 16 or 17 that they find out that the plan was wrong. So that is a little bit late. So then let's compare with the kindergarten kids, right? What do? They don't introduce themselves. They don't know their name. I remember I was at the playground with my daughter when she was small, and she comes to me and she says, "Oh, I have a new friend." And I'm, of course, asking, "Yeah, what's her name?" "I don't know." Okay, so 4-year-old, 5-year-old kids do not ask each other's name and age and which school are you from and what degrees do you have, right? They just don't. By the way, they don't even realize that it's a competition. They are just playing, they go for it, they build stuff, and then it fails, of course. They're not architects, they are 5-year-old. So they try something, it breaks down, they fix it, it breaks down, it collapses, they adjust it, they somehow make it work quickly. Check, do that, let's do that, I'm holding it. It's very, very lively, very loud, and something is happening in the middle. And at the end, you have something that stands, and actually statistically better than average. Of course, the thing that stands is not symmetrical. It has all the scars in the design process, sticks that have no function, but they are just because they used to be there 3 iterations ago. Okay, but the thing stands. The marshmallow is above the table at a really respectable height, and that means that trial and error works. Okay, so action, hands-on, that's what works. Now let's look at our architects and engineers. How come they are so good at it? Well, they are cheating. They spent 5 years at university, first of all, to learn how to make towers. And then they work and they practice that. And of course, they arrive with the knowledge. Like, they're not challenged. They probably never did it with spaghettis before, but they can make correlations with the knowledge they have of brittle other materials. And then they find their way through, right? So domain knowledge, simply specialized skills. Of course, when you know what you're doing, it helps. Okay? So that's how they do. They have specialized skills. So we know now already that we need to go for it, trial and error, right? But we need to know what we're dealing with. Okay? If you're a complete beginner at something, it takes the other bunch of tools we're going to talk about today to survive. Okay, and then CEOs. So what's interesting, you see that if you put 4 CEOs in that study, these are CEOs from Fortune 500 companies, right? Like the big boys, not from the local startup, like the big boys from Wall Street, right? So you put 4 CEOs like that and you give them the assignment, they achieve really good score, above average. But if you only have 3 of them and you put an admin assistant, then they become amazing. What is the admin assistant doing? The admin assistant is the communication channel. The admin assistant is, managing the ego battles, making sure that a decision is made, making sure that someone, even though he or she is the CEO of a large company, accepts to be just holding the thing while someone else does the job. Like communication and humility. Like if you have a 25% communication and humility and 75% specialized skills, you get really good results, okay? So communication, for problem solving, communication is key, okay? Now, this is an experiment this was in a session that I've done at Honeywell, because part of my role was to do these kind of talks as well internally in the corporate. And I gave them one piece of paper, A4, to each of them, and I said, flying is the art of falling slowly, so you have 5 minutes to make an aircraft. And I told them that I am the pilot, that I'm going to stand on the table, hold the aircraft, and drop it, not throw it, right? Just drop it. And the measurement is how long it takes before the moment I drop it or let go and the moment it touches the ground. So there was a lot of good stuff. There was no aerospace engineer in the room, so they had not much of the domain knowledge, so they did trial and error. That's good approach. They had a lot of fun. It was not a team building event. They knew each other. They were all practically my friends already, but like it was fun to do. There was a lot of communication. There was a lot of testing, right? They were, you can see, doing things and trying to see if it flies or not. Now, what went wrong? With what went wrong, I mean, why did my aircraft fly longer than theirs? Okay? What went wrong is several things. They started carefully. When you have 5 minutes to solve a problem, the radical ideas are to be tested first. Because if you go carefully and what you do is not good enough, you have lost time, and then you come with the radical idea, but then you don't have time to test it. So, come with the radical ideas first, test what you need to test to validate that idea. Sometimes you don't need to test a full solution, you just need to test a component of it to know if there is something worth investigating or not, okay? So start with the radical stuff. Second thing, they poorly tested their stuff. I mean, if I'm sitting and dropping a piece of paper here, do you really think it's going to behave all the way? Let's say it has a behavior for those 70 centimeters. And then I'm standing on the table like this. So suddenly it's 2.5 meters that the thing is falling. What makes you believe that it's going to behave the last 2 meters the way it behaved the first half a meter? That's just an illusion, right? So whatever you're trying, be careful of the scale of your tests relative to the scale of the actual performance that you need. Yeah? You can test things in a lab. That's how we do, right? I mean, I'm not climbing on a telecom tower with my system if I'm not sure it works, okay? I climb 3 meters in our lab with another system holding me, okay? Like, of course. But you need to be sure that your testing is relevant. And the more important, the big learning from that test is that they all tried to make something that flies slowly. I didn't say that. I wanted the thing to fall slowly. Only the vertical measurement of the motion matters. If you make a thing that spins super fast near the ceiling for 2 hours, you won. I didn't say it's slow motion. I just said it cannot go down. Okay? So they have done things that were slow, but I made a thing that moves fast, but not vertically fast. So I'm not going to tell you how I do, because I don't even know if, there's probably better ways. So it's not relevant. So this was about problem solving so far. We learned that hands-on iteration outperforms overthinking. That's good news for makers and, creatives, like you are all supposed to be, right? I didn't ask, but I believe you are from different kinds of design professions, right? And creative professions and multimedia things, and like you all use similar tools to do different things. Is that fair? Roughly? Okay, good enough. Good enough for now, my test is okay. Specialized skills, knowing what you talk about is useful in general, but being able to communicate. If you have experts who are not able to communicate, they're not useful. If you have someone who can facilitate that, they are useful. And correctly framing the problem, obviously, falling, it's the vertical measurement that matters. That's about problem solving, not necessarily about creativity. Now let's try to have a look at creativity. So 100 years ago, Graham Wallace proposed that theory about how a creative mind is working and how it's happening. And he was writing that by observing the big names like the Teslas and the Darwin and like the people who either invented or discovered huge things, like history-shattering things. No, I'm not talking about me sketching at the table, okay? We're talking about Big things. And he said that first there is acquiring domain knowledge. Then there is incubation, like you learn a lot of stuff, but you need time to digest it. And you also need to allow yourself to digest that knowledge. Then there is the aha moment, which usually happens where? When do you have an aha moment?
At the one in my bed, before sleep.
Yes, in bed, in the shower, jogging in the forest. I'm talking about my examples. At the toilet. You're kidding. Like seriously, you're stuck in a SolidWorks model and you're like struggling for 3 hours. Just leave it, go to the toilet. And then you're like, of course. And you go back and you fix it. So, like this is not a joke. I mean, this works. So why? Why? Because the aha moment comes when your brain stops focusing too much on the tactical problems that you're dealing with, and your brain allows itself to connect things that are not in your field of vision. And suddenly you are much smarter because you connect the dots, right? So that's what happened. And then there is, of course, verification. So when Darwin or Tesla and so on has a hunch that, oh, something is happening here, I think I figured how it works, they still needed to like prove it and write it correctly and make sure that people understand it fully and make sure that they understand it fully themselves before explaining. So there is the crafting the message version. So that's how Graham Wallace describes a big creative work 100 years ago. Let's start from there for now. So what we see as parallels, right? We talked about acquiring knowledge and specialized skills in the previous test, so we're not completely mad there. We're in the same ballpark. Incubation, that means it's a matter of mindset, right? You can have someone who knows loads of stuff, 6 PhDs, one after another. That doesn't mean that that person has the right mindset to be creative, the mindset to go beyond what they know and discover what was written between the lines, okay? Then awareness, so he left, he had an aha moment, but when you have an aha moment in bed or something like this, plenty of people have ideas. I mean, we all have ideas. We are all creative, right? You were all born creative, no discussion about that. You all had fun and everything before. So the point is that when you have that aha moment, you need to have a fly on the ceiling, like your own micro drone that follows you and observes you all the time and takes notes of what you're doing. And when you have that aha moment, that fly takes note, so that tomorrow morning, the fly tells you, yesterday you had that idea, you should go for verification, check. So I'm the kind of guy who gets out of bed, go downstairs, and write a few keywords on a post-it note so that tomorrow and then I stick it in the jeans. So that tomorrow when I put my jeans, I have my idea with me. And I can go to engineering and ask clever people if my idea makes sense, okay? So don't believe that you will remember your idea tomorrow. It's not true. You will not. So if you have an idea, write it down or record yourself, like WhatsApp it to somebody. I don't care how you do. Just record enough so that tomorrow you can go and check. Now in this room, I will assume that there's a lot of specialized skills, a lot of knowledge. That's great. And I know that you spend, I've been a design student myself, so I know that you spend a lot of your time, including private time, making mock-ups and models and trying and so on and sketching and whatever. So I know you do a lot of work there. What we're going to try to see today is if you have the right mindset throughout the process, and if you have that awareness to catch those ideas and do the right thing with them. Everybody follows still? By the way, it's really amazing to see people bring chairs. I take it as a sign of enthusiasm, but okay. So, busting a few myths, right? The legends about creativity. What is making people creative? And of course, by the way, there's no good presentation without a cartoon in it, right? So, this one is American though. But last minute panic is, of course, often a trigger of creativity outburst. At least people believe that. So let's go through. The myth is that pressure triggers creativity, right? So you give 5 minutes to someone to create an aircraft, and that's going to make the guy creative, right? No, I don't think so. I think the guy is creative. You are all creative. We were born creative. The problem is we grew up, right? We've been through a lot of experiences, some of them painful, and that made us fit into systems, into frames, into templates. It made us learn behaviors. It made us serious, right? And then we forgot how to just express ourselves. So pressure unleashes the creativity that you have. It is true that last-minute panic helps you come up with something radical that you didn't dare saying or doing before when you had time. But that's just unlocking something that you already have. Okay, you have it. All of you. Someone who is not creative, that does not exist. The thing is that you need to unlock that, allow it to express itself. So it's within us. You need to love it. You need to foster it. Like you're taking care of a child, you take care of your creativity. You take care of your silliness and madness like I do. Another legend about creativity. Yeah, let's break everything, right? Let's make disruptive stuff. Let's be rebellious. Let's be punk, right? I'm from the grunge generation, right? So I know what this is. But it's not about destroying things, right? The creative tools are all about that. We talked about domain knowledge, specialized skills, communication, collaboration, and so on. It's not about breaking things. You need to be at the top of your cognitive skills. If you want to be creative, you're basically asking the best out of your brain. So be healthy, sleep as much as you can every single day, and a bit more. Because sleep is really fantastic. It helps you to learn. It helps you to memorize long term what you learned today. If you don't sleep tonight, everything I'm saying is wasted. So please go to bed early and sleep at least 8 hours so that you remember on the long term some of the things I say today. Alcohol, not a good idea. It's not helping anybody to be creative. It helps you be funny, maybe, but not creative. Drink a lot of water. Drugs, same story. I have seen energy drinks in the room. Actually, no comment. It's not good for you. And I mean for your creativity. Like to be creative, to have your brain operating at top performance, you just need to be healthy, the best you can. And this is not a gray-haired, bitter old man saying that because I'm your dad. I'm not your dad, okay? I'm a guy who has tried a few things, and I'm telling you that when I drink a lot of water and I sleep a lot, I work better, okay? So, now, creative people are all artists. Is that the case? Thank you. No, it's not the case. I don't think so. Being creative is solve a problem, right? It's having new ideas to achieve something that you have in mind. That's a creative process. Being an artist is solving your own problem by using some techniques that can be creative. You have artists who invent new stuff, but you also have people who spend 20 years trying to master an ancient technique without inventing anything new. And they are artists. They do that for themselves. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not criticizing artists who do their own therapy. That's totally fine. I'm just saying, when I hear someone say, oh, I'm not an artist, I don't have ideas, it drives me nuts because there's no link whatsoever between those things, right? If you have a problem to solve, you bring ideas and you don't need to be an artist. Creative people are messy. Yeah, that's true, right? We are all messy. Like piles, like the stereotype of the mad scientist, right? Piles of documents everywhere on the desk. the broken glasses with the tape. Like, I used to have those. I'm not a scientist though. So, creative people are messy. Everybody knows that. Well, messy is creative, but spelling matters. So that's just because I'm me. So, what Messi does, the football player, one amazing skill he has permanent, never stopping, permanent, perfect overview of the field. He knows who is where, who is moving towards what, and he's constantly surprising everyone by passing to the one guy that you thought he's not going to pass to, because he knows precisely what's going on. This is about intentionally. That's a very important word for me, intentional. Everything you do, if you are designers, then everything you do is intentional, okay? Everything you do is intentional. If it's not, you failed. You can have a lucky accident, don't tell anybody, make it sound like it's intentional. And so intentionally keep everything top of mind. For me, the scientist with the piles of paper is because the guy knows that in those documents there is something related to those documents. He doesn't know what, but he's got the gut feeling that there is a link. And so he keeps it on the table and he keeps things going. My desk is constantly, I shouldn't say my desk, should say my den, right? I have shelves and stuff and you're not quite sure what is where. I mean, you wouldn't know, but I know when I arrive there exactly what is where. And it's tons of samples and mock-ups and papers and whatever. Everything is top of mind. If I put a document in a sleeve, in a folder, and a folder in the shelf, for me, that's like physically deciding that I'm going to forget it. Like I am not able to remember something that I have put in the shelf. It has to be there. I have to see it. Everything top of mind. And that is perceived by very organized, lean, Six Sigma, 5S people as messy. But I don't care about the blue tape. I have my stuff all around and I still have a job. So it kind of works. So what have we learned about creativity and the legends so far? It's not a talent that a few people have from birth because they are lucky, because their parents were amazing. It doesn't matter if you know your parents, you are creative, okay? And everybody has it. You need to own it, you need to be proud of your creativity, and you need to cherish it, foster it, like make it grow, take care of your creativity. Be intentional in everything you do. Nothing is an accident. If you decide to solve a problem, if you decide to solve it in a way that others haven't tried, it's intentional. So go for it. Creativity has no limits. If you are creative and you can operate in a certain field, you can operate in another field. I have been invited, so that's true. So I have worked 10 years at Honeywell Industrial Automation, and I had Honeywell Aerospace people inviting me in meetings. So, when I arrive in a meeting and there's like 10 experts and they introduce themselves and it's like electronics, software, mechanical engineer, project manager, and another electronic guy and an antenna expert. And they explain to me that they are designing a new antenna in the aerospace field and they need my help to make the antenna more efficient and smaller and cheaper. Like I know something about antennas. I mean, I'm an industrial designer, but so what did I do for 2 hours with them? I asked questions. They showed me their prototype. And of course, I know a thing or two about manufacturing processes and materials. So I started to ask, why is this done like this? And what if we do that? And why not? And 2 hours later, I felt like I had just asked questions. I had no idea if I had helped anybody. But they were like, thank you very much. This was fantastic. We know how to move forward. Okay. So creativity, problem solving, works across any field, even if you don't know that field. Of course, if you know the field, we said, specialized skills help. There was a dozen of experts in the room, right? So I was the admin assistant, helping these people think, helping these people unlock their brains. and get to what they already knew but didn't see. All right, so what are the tools? I assume that you know a bunch of tools on how to have ideas, and I'm curious, but these are not all the tools I know. These are a few I decided to talk about. You know 5 whys? You heard about that? It's more of an engineering thing, actually. So when you have a problem, as in something doesn't work the way they expected, engineers get nervous, and then they have a template called the rapid problem solving form, and part of it is 5 whys. Why is this happening? And people write an answer, and then from why is that answer happening? And why is that answer happening? You ask 5 stairs downstairs, right, of why, and then you get to the root cause, they say. So really the problem. And so the designer's way of expressing that is sciatica. Okay, you have pain in your leg, and the problem is in your back. Do not confuse problem and symptom. It's not the same thing. In medicine, there are people who are professional at taking care of symptoms, and if you are in palliative care, it's really bad news, and they are just trying to remove the pain until it's over. But in other fields, in engineering and architecture and fashion and anything else that you guys are involved with, the symptom is not useful. It just tells you that there is a problem. But it's the problem that you need to solve. An example, when I designed a respirator, so industrial use, reusable respirator, you know, the rubber thing with the 2 cartridges. You may have seen that somewhere in movies. So we made prototypes, and I asked people to try it, and I take note of their feedback, and there was a lot of pain here. This is a very common problem for respirators, by the way, but pain here. And I had no way to make that part softer. It was already like 0.8 millimeter of silicone. It's just like, I couldn't make it softer or smoother in any way. What we found is that the problem was not the shape of the seal at the nose, the problem was the balance of the mask, and I solved it by modifying the chin area. Okay? So the symptom was here, the problem was here, and the solution was here. The solution is where the problem is, not the symptom. Now, experience outcome. Have you heard of that? So the experience outcome is the idea that you should not care about solutions at the beginning of your process. You have a problem, solutions come late in the process. You have a problem, first you need to understand the problem, obviously, the 5 whys. You need to be sure it's a problem and not a symptom. And then you need to decide what you will deliver to your customer, to your user. So if someone says, make this new version lighter, that's the wrong brief. Because lighter, first of all, is not measurable, so you need a measurable way of doing, but it's also a solution. Your goal has to be make that device, let that user hold the device above the head for 6 minutes by one hand, right? Then you are designing how that person is going to feel. You are designing what that person is going to experience, what that person is going to achieve. You're not yet talking about how you let them achieve that. Do you understand the difference? It's really important. So we have that template. It's usually helpful for a lot of people to have templates, but basically, it's written user, but it can be an installer, it can be a maintenance operator, you know, like the person that you're trying to help, the stakeholder you're trying to help. Do a certain job, a certain task with success criteria. If you don't have success criteria, you have nothing. Because if you think you have a solution, but you actually don't know if it works because you don't know what is pass and fail. You don't know what is success or not. If I say make it lighter, so Take an Audi A8, make it lighter, remove 100 grams. Yeah, that's a significant difference, right? So you need success criteria that you can measure. You need that because you need to prove that you have finished your job. If you are freelancers, that is the difference between getting paid and not getting paid. Feed the kids and pay the rent. Like, you realize the gravity of what I'm saying? Like, you need to, early in your design process, define the success criteria. What is good enough? What is fantastic and what is not necessary? And what is not good enough? Because then when you deliver, you can prove to your customer that you have delivered on expectations, and then you can invoice it and you get paid. If they can argue that the job is not done, you don't get paid. About half of you are probably going to become freelancing at some point in your life. You realize that. So please remember that one. Go to bed early and remember that one. So the big elephant in the room, the brainstorming. Who has not heard of brainstorming? Okay, that's what I thought. Everybody talks about brainstorming, including people who have no clue what it is. And I don't like brainstorming. I don't like the tool because I think it is, at least the way I understand it, it is inherently flawed because you are asking people to go into a storm, like free, express themselves, no limit, and so on, without interrupting each other, and without saying anything negative. Sorry, but if you ask me to have an outburst of emotional, spontaneous ideas, there will be some negative stuff in there. That's just the way it is. So for me, there is a problem there. And if you have 12 people in the room, that's a problem. If you have 2 people in the room, that's a problem. So you need to have a team of the right amount of people who know how to do this. Wow. Basically not happening. I haven't seen it happen. Usually when some director says, let's brainstorm because we have that problem, I understand it as, let's take a few clever people who have some specialized skills and domain knowledge, let's put them in a room and let's have a focused conversation on what are we going to do about it. Okay? If that's the definition of brainstorming, that's what I do on a weekly basis. But it's not such an explosion of creativity. It's experts having a conversation. That tool, though, the creative matrix, is like a written form of brainstorming. And when I was taught that tool, I thought, wow, that's super cool. Because suddenly, sometimes I've been teaching at Brno University, and so we have that big whiteboard, and I have the 15 or 20 students, and I'm like, put your ideas. So even the shyest of the shyest is able to stand up, take a post-it note, a big fat marker, make a little pictogram or write 3 words, and put the post-it on the wall. You don't need to be loud, you don't need to be good at English, you don't need, it removes a whole bunch of the obstacles of brainstorming. So what you do is that you have a matrix where you have your problem statements or experience outcomes or statements of opportunity, basically what you're trying to achieve, and in the other axis you have who you're trying to help, okay? And you ask people to put ideas. You can have 5 people putting a post-it at the same time. In a brainstorm, you cannot have 5 people talking at the same time. And then you have the reaction thing. People are really good at knowing what they don't like. They are not so good at saying what they want. By the way, that's not only about design, right? That's the gray hair talking. So, typically, design agency nightmare, you have a customer who comes in, a marketing person from a big brand, and they say, we want to launch a new campaign, we need this and that, wow me. So that's the brief, wow me. Believe it or not, I heard that a dozen times in just a couple of years in Prague, right? So wow me. And then you show them stuff and they don't like it. And you show more stuff and they don't like it. And you just, like shooting in the dark, and you don't know what to do. And then you have the 2 extremes. You have the people who are really good at knowing what they don't like. And you just, like shooting in the dark, and you don't know what to do. And then you have the people who are really good at knowing what they don't like. And you just, like shooting in the dark, and you don't know what to do. And then you have the people who are really good at knowing what they don't like. And you just, like shooting in the dark, They just know what they don't like. They don't know what they really want. They don't really have a vision. So your job as a designer is help them have a vision, okay? Don't let them pull you to the cliff and make you jump, okay? Help them have a vision. Why am I talking about that? Yes, reaction. So reaction, you have an idea, you put it on the wall, and your colleague reads it, thinking that copying is a good source of inspiration. And actually it is, because then you're like, I don't agree with that, but ding, a new idea next to it. Or, wow, amazing, and even better if. Okay? So people reacting to each other's ideas, that works. And we go back to facilitation in the spaghetti thing, right? Communication, people trying things together, having fun. Crazy 8. That is last minute panic on time. So the tool is crazy. Like you have a problem statement, you have 8 minutes to create or to propose 8 solutions. It's a nightmare. For me, 3 solutions is easy. Like, give me a problem to come up with 3 things, sure. I didn't say they were good, okay? 3, that's easy. 5, I can. 6, 7 gets hard, and the 8th is really hard. And 8 minutes is really not much. Just the time it takes to write your idea. It's just like, so that's last minute panic. But of course you do that planned in your process, long before the deadline, early when you are having this ideation phase with your colleagues to try to get new stuff going, right? So you put yourself under time pressure. What happens is that, honestly, the 7th and 8th idea you're going to write, probably you will not even believe it. Like, you will write whatever. You will write stuff that is way out of your own frame of cultural locks. You will completely, you just put something for the sake of putting something. So if you're alone, it's useless. If you have 3 colleagues doing the same thing, and then you have a meeting reading each other's ideas and discussing them, what didn't make any sense to you, but you wrote down because you had to find some kind of 8th thing to write, will make sense to somebody else who will say, yeah, okay, that sounds stupid, but if you change this, suddenly it works and the team gets going, okay? So it's last minute panic on time. You guys maybe don't even know what those pictures are, right? How many of you were born in the 90s? Most of you? But in the late 90s, right? Or maybe even 2000? So at that point, I was a foreigner twice. Anyway, so these are DVD players, okay? And because I think it's an interesting, good example, I'm sure I will need to find better examples because people don't know what is a DVD player. But so the early DVD players had a display that was telling you are at the track number this, minute, seconds, this and that is happening. It has a historical reason, right? I mean, before that, they were CD players, okay? And before CD players, they were... Yes, the tapes, the VHS, which was the video version of it, the turntables, right, with the vinyls, that you know because of DJs, right? Though, I mean, you have seen that at the museum kind of thing. But, so, here's an interesting point. There was a time when to have music, you had to go to an orchestra or a band play for you, okay? Then there was a time where you could have recordings, and those supports were physical supports that you could see working. You put the vinyl, you remove the dust. You put the vinyl, you carefully adjust the speed, put the arm where it needs to be, get it down, and then the music comes. That's a whole experience of stuff happening. And then suddenly, at that point, I'm probably a teenager, the CD arrives. They talk about it on the news at 8 p.m., right? It's like, compact disc. Philips invented the compact disc. Amazing. You put that thing in a drawer that closes, you don't see it, and if you're not in a perfectly quiet environment, you don't even hear that it starts running. And for people who for generations have had direct haptic feedback in everything they did, we were wondering, is this thing working? So the display that says 00, 01, 02, that was really reassuring. So when they went to the DVD, that reassuring little display made sense to us, the dinosaurs. But in reality, it was plain stupid, because a DVD player, guess what? Where is it?
On the television.
Thank you. So why do we put a 2-inch LCD display if we have a 60-inch full-color display connected to it, right? So that's the later DVDs that didn't have anything. They were just a box that you plug to a TV and you use the remote of the TV, and right? But so the point is, whatever you are designing, it exists in a context, a historical context, but also a physical context. You design a thing that fits into a surgery room in a hospital. Let's say your device is monitoring something, measuring something, and then you have a TV, like a 20 inches monitor to display your data. Great, now we have 12 monitors in the operation room. Bad idea, okay? You make your device compatible with the infrastructure of the surgery room so that they have 4 or 5 displays with correctly displayed information, with the correct hierarchy of information and everything. So you're going to do more work on software, and you're going to save money on that monitor that is just taking place. Make sense? The context is super important. So everything you do, zoom out. Where is this going to be used? By whom? With what other things around, etc. And to the point of thinking out of the box, it just depends on how big the box is, okay? So I think around the smallest version of the box I can think of, and that gives me the bigger box, which is the context of use. Propelling question, that's a fantastic tool. It's a bit intellectual, but it's great. So the idea is that it's a bit of a think around the box as well. Let's take the example. So Audi, how can we win the race when our cars are not faster than anyone else? So first of all, they were intelligent enough to know that when you go to a race like 24 hours of Le Mans, competitors are really good. And it's not that obvious that your car is going to be faster than the Porsches and the BMWs and the others, right? So they took a step back, they looked outside the box, and they realized that their job is not to make fast cars, their job is to win the race. And in the 24-hour race, there are pit stops, there's refueling. So if you can skip one pit stop or two, those couple of minutes make you win. That's how they won 2006, I think. So phrase your problem statement, like the thing when you start having that focused conversation with people who have domain knowledge and you want to solve the problem and you call it a brainstorming. You start the conversation by a statement that is a huge ambition, like winning the 24 hours of Le Mans, and then a real big obstacle that you put on purpose, like something that sounds like a deal breaker. And then you ask yourself, what if? Okay? We can do that if this and that. And then you actually manage to really stretch your creativity beyond the symptom, and you get much better solutions. So, known tools that we looked at. What do? They have us focused on the target. The target is win the race, not make faster cars. Okay? Focused on the target, on the big outcome, the experience outcome. The goal is you feel good. The goal is you learn this and that. The goal is he can do that job holding it by one hand in 2 minutes. Okay? That's the goal. I still don't know what tool I'm designing. I just know that he's going to hang that picture in 2 minutes this way, this way, this way. Okay? Those tools need collaboration. Even the crazy 8 that you do alone at your table, it makes sense only if you can go to someone else and discuss what you have written. All those tools are trying to generate quantity of ideas because if you stick to the first two, you stick to what Dr. Freud would tell about you. And we need more than that. So you need quantity of ideas so that your first obvious ones get out of the way, and then you get to the more interesting ones, and then the more interesting ones. And if everybody has quantity of ideas, there is a lot to discuss and to use. That's how you go beyond the obvious. The tools put you under time pressure because the tools know that you have been formatted by society, schools, institutions, the police, whatever, that told you how to behave. So we put you under pressure, time pressure, or challenge pressure to push you through the filters. And it's really important to get comfortable with unlikely hypotheses, like win a race without having fast cars, okay? Get comfortable with the idea that this is not the easiest path. It's fine. Just enjoy the ride. Accept the unlikely hypothesis, at least within the frame of your work. You accept it, and you do your thinking, and you know that something is not sorted. It's okay, keep going. And then before the end, before the deadline, of course, you go back to that thing that is not sorted. And at the very minimum, you put it as disclaimer that you started your project on the hypothesis that this and that is true. I start with the hypothesis that in 2040, cities are going to be pedestrians. Like I'm just saying that. Of course, I don't know. I know some cities will. My hometown is a pedestrian area, the whole thing. So you make an assumption, even if you're not totally sure, just go with it. Worst case scenario, you just make it a disclaimer. Best case scenario, you come back to that hypothesis and you prove how it builds your process. You prove that it's going to be true, and you have your solutions that work. Making sense so far? I talk a lot, but after it's your turn, okay? Artful artificial intelligence. I couldn't help myself. Just thought, artful, artificial. If you're drunk and you say it fast, it's the same. So this is probably one of the most important slides when we talk about artificial intelligence. Doing something is not the same as getting it done. When a teacher, professor is asking you to write an essay, 5,000 words in a Word document on some topic, what are they trying to do? Why do they ask that? What's the goal?
To test if you're capable of achieving.
Yes, exactly. So their goal is not to just have a collection of Word documents. They've been teaching for 20 years. Imagine how many Word documents they have, like from Word 1 to the newest version. Like, that's not the point. The point is make you think, make you search, make you hesitate, make you discuss it, make you redo it. The whole thing, get upset, sweat on it. Because then at the end what happens is that you feel like you have achieved something and you feel good about it and you have learned stuff and you will remember it. That's what they care about. They don't care about if you print it or not. I mean, they pretend to care, right? They put rules. But they don't. What they want is that you think. So in the context of artificial intelligence, I think it's a really important concept that the process is more important than the output. How many of you do sport? A bunch of you, right? That means you're training, right? Regularly. Weekly, more than weekly. Why? It's freaking painful, it's tiring. Then you're sweaty and smelly. Why do you do that? Because it makes you feel good after. It makes you better people, right? So that's the point. It's not like, every process is like this. It's the process that matters. If you skip the process, if you cheat, Yeah, you get the job done, but you haven't made any progress. I have the same at corporate, right? We have a system called Accolade where, as a designer, there's a list of documents that I must upload to prove that I have done my job. Okay, so I upload documents so that I have done those necessary steps of the prescribed process. I can ask ChatGPT to create something and upload it and be done. Does that help me? So if I'm trying to create a document that is a persona, some kind of illustration of the market segment that we are targeting, I can get that done in a few minutes, asking AI. I'm going to have a PowerPoint with information about people, the market segment. Is that helping me do my design? What helps me is get in the car, drive to Germany to meet a guy who installs antennas on telecom towers, and give him my prototype and have him go up and down and I film him. And then I ask him what he feels about it. And I ask him why he hates the old one. Or does he hate the new one more than the old one? Like, then I learn stuff. Then on the way back while driving, I'm already thinking how I'm going to solve those problems. AI could give me a report, probability that I read it fully, probability that I read it carefully, probability that I fully understand the depth of the information in it, reading between the lines. So please, 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 focus on outcomes, not on output. So when you are at university, you're not here to have a diploma. You are here to get a job after. You are here to make you eligible for a good job. Of course you need the diploma, we agree on that, right? We all know you need it. Because otherwise the companies are not going to consider you. But that is just a necessary step. It's one brick in the bridge. If you know nothing and have a document, guess what? There is a trial period. So you get a job and 2 weeks later you're fired. Not useful. Learning loads of stuff, much more useful. I'm going to say something that is not popular. I have a master's degree, but I don't have a bachelor. Okay? So, literally, I just got lucky to be accepted in a university in Sweden that got me to the point of having a master's degree. But what I did before that was in schools that were not officially recognized by institutions and so on. They didn't care. At that point, when they accepted me in the master, they checked my portfolio, my answers to some questionnaire, and blah, blah, blah. They checked my profile, okay? They checked me. They didn't check my diploma. So you need your diploma. What you need most is all the stuff you can learn in the process. Now, going back to Graham Wallace that said that creativity is that process 100 years ago. I said earlier that context matters. What does that mean to you, 1926? What do you visualize right now?
Between the world wars.
Okay. Practically, you're a scientist or a researcher or someone who tries to invent something in 1910, 1920, 1930. What do you look like? Where do you work? How do you do your work? Let me put it that way. I had my first computer in 1986, and at that time there was no internet. Okay. Then when we had internet, it had a sound. We had to block the fixed phone line of the house. Okay, nobody able to get a call or make a call because I plugged the computer into the modem, and then it goes trying to connect to something. So what happens in 1926 if I'm trying to find information? I read books. And where are those books?
The library.
Thank you. And if I don't live in Paris or London or Istanbul, how do I get to those books?
Travel.
Thank you. How many weeks does it take to go from south of France to Paris if you are and you don't have a fancy car in the 1920s? So you see what I'm saying, right? So Graham's understanding of the process made sense when, Darwin was traveling all over the world on sailing boats, and he took 35 years to write the theory of evolution, okay? So that's another scale compared to us. Now you guys have it in your phone. You don't even need to lift yourself, you just pull the phone, right? So let's have a look at how things have changed. Immediate information is not, in my opinion, and we can disagree on that, we can argue, immediate information is not the same as acquiring knowledge. My understanding of knowledge is that it's information that you understand, okay? And understanding the information, that's quite a significant difference. It's like having a book on the bedside table. It's not the same as I read the book. And then wisdom is when you have a whole bunch of domain knowledge in different fields and you are able to connect those things and see the correlations in how things work and why sleeping makes you creative, okay? And why being healthy makes you better designers. That comes with a lot of white hair. But AI gives you that. Now, thinking. Again, visualize. You're designers, you're visualizing people. So if you ever to make a film of a scientist or someone trying to invent things in the 1910s, 1920s, and he's done some tests, or she has done some tests in their lab, and then they have results, and the results are weird, not what they expected. What do? Come on, you've seen movies like Sherlock Holmes and stuff, right? They sit in a leather armchair, they drink whiskey, and they discuss it. I'm making a joke now, but like they incubate. They give themselves the time to think about it. They have a long incubation time. You just have asked ChatGPT, you got information, and you are in an era of life is no picnic. That's not a joke, by the way. I was at a workshop at Nestlé as a consultant for an agency, and we had a workshop, a bunch of marketing people trying to create some new packaging and campaigns and stuff, and I was there to be a facilitator. And there was a boss that had traveled from Germany to Prague, and I don't know how many times in the meeting he was like, "Come on people, life is no picnic, let's get things done." And I was like, man, let's have the time to think. I agree that I'm not sitting here to waste time, but when someone asks a question, it's okay to take 30 seconds to answer, right? 25 is better, but 30 is okay. Fast food is not aperitif. You know what is aperitif? Or tapas in Spain, right? The idea that you're going to be eating and drinking with friends and spend time having a chat about what happened during the week, okay? AI does not deliver that. Now, awareness, if you are constantly, you obviously know the term brain rot, okay? Me too, I'm a victim of it. So, because yes, in the evening, when I get home and this evil device offers me that shiny red little icon there. And then I'm stuck. And then I don't even talk to my kids. This is so sad. So, don't do that, okay? You are going to become completely numb, completely immune to input if there is tons of useless input coming at you. And the internet is 50% junk. We know that. We all consciously know that. But it's so hard to, on the spot, see the difference and on the spot decide this is junk, I turn it off. How many times have you felt like, oh, I just wasted 2 hours, I don't remember what I've seen? I can't count how many times it's happened to me. That I don't remember what I've done for the last 2 hours because that thing is in my hands. And I have the one from work also. So, and then reading a document, that's clearly not the same as crafting a message. Proofreading, that takes a lot of focus. And still, if you don't have the domain knowledge, you're not sure that the information you get is valid. So that part here crafting a message, the time I spent putting together that PowerPoint is more useful to me than the time I spend now trying to explain to you, because that's when I made that PowerPoint, that's when I acquired some clarity of thought on what I'm trying to explain. And if it's not clear, it's because there's work to be done, but it's clearer than a year ago, okay? So, please be careful about those. I'm not anti-AI, it's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's a tool like another tool, and you need to understand the limits of the tool and the opportunities of the tool, and don't get fooled. So AI can be a great thing. And I would say in particular, if you give it a specific task. So again, when I was a bit younger than you, there was big society debate. Shall we allow teenage people at gymnasium to have calculators? Yeah, I'm that old. I mean, seriously, so my parents, they learned calculus, right? When they were at the exam of physics, they had to do the math with a pen. I didn't. When I had an exam of physics, I had to know which formula to use. And I had a calculator to do the hard work. But I needed the specialized skills, which I don't have, to pass the exam. Now, if you ask AI to choose the formula for you, that's not going to end well. It will work sometimes. You're going to be lucky sometimes, like everyone else. But you have no guarantee that it's going to work all the time. And you're going to get the same answer as anyone else. In physics, it's useful. In creative work, not so much. So please use it for what it does well, for the sweaty hard work, the painful bits that you don't want to do, but don't rely on it. You drive your process. Because if what you deliver, let's say that I hire you, and what I get from you is what I would get from the AI tool that you use. Why do I hire you? If it's that fast, like why would I pay you 8 hours if I can get the job done myself by working 1 extra hour? Like seriously, like financially it doesn't make any sense. So you need to bring something of your own. Now, help is a curse. You all know the story of the butterfly? The guy who sees a cocoon and there's a butterfly that is trying to get out of the cocoon. By the way, I Googled it and there's like so many versions of the story. That's part of the problem of internet, and internet is the source of AI. So I don't know what is the original story. Some say that it's a scientist, some say that it's a boy. Okay, someone saw a cocoon starting to open and it was super slow, taking forever. That person was impatient and thought, I'm going to help that poor butterfly that seems to be struggling so hard to get out of the cocoon. So took a blade of some sort, a knife, and tried to open the cocoon to help the butterfly come out. And the butterfly came out. But that was not a butterfly. It was a fat body with wrinkled wannabe wings. Because the process of getting through the hole, the small hole of the cocoon, is applying pressure on the body, and the fluids that are in the body of the butterfly go into the wings and help developing the wings. So that's maybe just a metaphor. I don't care. The point is, the help has destroyed the potential of the being there. So if you constantly get help, if you constantly get stuff done for you instead of doing it yourself, you're not going to achieve much, and you're going to feel, I'm going to stay polite, you're going to feel terrible about it. How much self-confidence are you going to build by just getting help all day long? Zero. I mean, just please pick a book about how to raise children and you'll find out, like, let them struggle. Struggle is part of the game. The teacher that is asking you to write 5,000 words, it's just a setup so that you struggle, so that you go through the work. Okay? Help at that level of efficiency and efficacy of help If you constantly rely on it, it will kill you. It will destroy you. It will make you stupid. And on top of that, AI language models are taking their information from the internet. A few minutes ago, I said half of it is junk. Now, some questions. How sure are you that all the regions of the world are equally contributing to the content of the internet? How sure are you that all the social classes are equally contributing to the content of the internet? How sure are you that all the religious beliefs and philosophies are equally represented in the quantity of content that they put into the internet? How sure are you that blah, 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 blah? This is just a whole bunch of biases. You are asking a computer to give you the holy answer, and in fact, that computer is a drunk American on Friday in a pub. Maybe that drunk American is a scientist, and occasionally he says something clever, and you're lucky to get that information. But the internet is an Irish pub. The only problem, I mean, Facebook and all those things, that I'm not immune to that. Again, I'm not blaming anyone. I'm no better than the others. We are in a context, and that context is a constant Irish pub full of drunk people talking nonsense, and a few people who try to make sense out of it. And AI is useful if you know how to avoid all those traps, but be careful. And anyway, it's still not you, so it doesn't have your flavor. Now, talking about artificial intelligence, I couldn't help, I had to Google the definition of intelligence. And according to the Cambridge Dictionary, intelligence is the ability to learn, understand, and make judgments or have opinions that are based on reason. So learn and understand, okay, maybe those systems are able to aggregate a lot of information, find correlations between them, and somehow understand the content of all the text that exists on the internet. Okay, let's accept that. Make judgments. After what I just said about all the biases of the American drunk pub, so is the judgment that those systems make really reliable? And is it based on reason, and what is reason? So, of course, if I Google the definition of intelligence, what do I Google next?
Artificial.
No. I Googled stupidity. Okay. Of course. Because when you have, you face a problem or you have a piece of information, always check the opposite, right? It puts things in balance, in perspective. And stupidity is a state of being silly or unwise. Anybody have ever heard of an AI tool giving a silly answer? Yes. So that super intelligent system is also able to be stupid. And only you can find out when. Now, about stupidity, there is that really interesting theory, the Bonhoeffer theory of stupidity. I don't know if he was a priest or I don't remember from which religion. Doesn't matter. A guy in Germany during World War II, and he's observing the behavior of people around him, and he sees a lot of very intelligent people make very wrong decisions. Okay? And he starts asking himself, how does that happen? How these people become so stupid? Why do they follow that mass and that leader? And he got to the conclusion that it's a moral failure. Basically, people fail at deciding to do the right thing. Okay? So the big question that we all, but you young ones, you have 40 years ahead of you facing that in your career. You have to face that debate. How do I make the best out of AI? And the only thing that can drive your decisions is your moral compass, your personality, your culture, your flavor. Your flavor is your culture, and your culture is the contextual definition of right and wrong. We all have in mind a definition for right and wrong. Maybe not consciously, but something happened and we feel it's right or we feel it's wrong. And that comes from the way we were raised. That comes from our parents, the extended family, the schools, the whole village. There is a saying that it takes a village to raise a child. Okay? So that's your context. I grew up in a given context, 19 years in a row in one country. And then I moved. So I've been in different contexts. All of you, whether you travel or not, irrelevant, you are constantly exposed to different contexts. Your context is evolving, and your definition of right and wrong is evolving as well. It is your duty and responsibility to keep an eye on that. And sometimes to realize like, maybe my definition of wrong has been stretched a little bit too far to this direction. I'm going to try to put it back the other way because what Dad used to say wasn't completely dumb anyway, kind of thing, right? I have had it firsthand because of all the cultural clashes, right? Each time you change country, boom, the definition of right and wrong is in your face. What you think is right is wrong. So like, but even if you are not in those shock situations, your definition of right and wrong is constantly challenged by the context, by the media, by everything around you, and it is your duty to keep an eye on that. Please. There is a really good talk, Mike Montero, so Google it later. Mike Montero, How Designers Destroyed the World, is really unpleasant. Like it makes you feel terrible to watch that video. But at the end, you know why you're a designer, and it's all about the responsibility of the designer. I recommend. You have a responsibility to be you, not the internet. You are you. If someone hires you, it's because it's you. And you is defined by your definition of right and wrong. Okay, the magic wand. Let's go back to some more fun stuff. How do I deal with that stuff? Oh, that's a stressful moment. Okay, so let's imagine a situation. Visualize it. We are at home in the kitchen. There is that bamboo tray with the fruits. You see it? And there is one orange. And there are two kids. Maybe you are the kids, or maybe you have two kids. And the kids are fighting for that last orange. And of course, there is a mother in the picture. And of course, she witnesses the fight. She doesn't like the kids to argue and be rude to each other and maybe hit each other. So what is she going to do? What is the most likely behavior? What would your mother do?
Slice the orange.
She would share, right? She would slice the orange. I heard someone say, tell one kid to cut the orange and the other kid to choose the half he wants, right? To be super fair. Okay. But perhaps one kid wants the juice and the other kid wants the peel to flavor muffins. So you give half a juice to the one who's thirsty and not enough peel to the one who wants to make muffins. And you're going to eat those muffins, yeah? So you fail. See what I'm saying? So always challenge the assumption. The marketing person that says, wow me, the person who writes the brief makes assumptions. And then you read the brief and you make assumptions. So already twice you have failed in translation from what they really wish to have and what you think they want. So your duty as a designer is go ask. When I read your brief, I assume that you mean this and that. Is this correct? I assume that I am allowed to challenge this and that, but not allowed to challenge this and that. Is that correct? Keep asking those questions. Same with the teachers. Don't tell them they're wrong. They're not wrong, okay? Ask them what they want you to achieve, not how. They give you the tasks because how is your problem. But you need to understand the goal of the task. Because I had it yesterday again. It made me so furious. Someone asked me to validate some design based on some brand rules. And then I was like, why are you doing this? There is another team that is in charge of doing that stuff. But that guy asked me to do it quickly. A whole mess of misunderstandings. One guy needed a 10 minutes, 30 quick visualization of something to make a decision. He didn't need a whole artwork for packaging. And a person spent 4 hours doing an artwork for packaging instead of 10 minutes to satisfy that guy. And I got upset in the process, and I contacted the bosses on the other side of the world because they are in charge of that stuff. So ask questions. Challenge your assumptions and the assumptions of everybody around. That doesn't need to be rude or aggressive. It just means ask, find out, investigate. Another example, flood-proof house. If I ask you to design a flood-proof house, what do you visualize as designers? What's the first idea you have?
House on a hill.
Sorry?
Build a house on a hill.
That's an idea. And I heard another voice.
Files.
Like Bali type of, yeah. Or building walls or trenches and drainage and all that stuff. Well, someone in the Netherlands has made a house that floats. I'm not talking about a houseboat on a river. I'm talking a street with houses and a small garden and a terrace and a house, the red brick house, right? But the thing is built in a big swimming pool kind of thing. So when the water infiltrates under the house, it just ends up lifting the house. Granted, the garden gets flooded, the terrace gets flooded, the house just moves up. That's pretty cool. I can promise you that if I was in a brainstorming at work and saying, let's make a floating house, people would Are you okay? So, be comfortable again with the idea that the hypothesis is wrong. Accept it. Be aware of it. Of course, you need to be realistic and reasonable. So you know that you start from an assumption that sounds crazy, but that's okay. You do your job and you keep checking how crazy that really is, and if there is a workaround, and if there is a way to make it work. So how do we do that? These are the tools. What if? Why not? Let's assume. And yes, if is the most powerful tool in your career. Someone is asking you, can you solve that problem with a non-reasonable timeline? Right? Can you fix it in 2 weeks? If you say no, they get upset and they cancel that other project that pays your rent and feeds your kids. So you say yes if. Yes, if I can hire 5 people and we can spend 500,000 crowns on prototyping. That's a polite form of no, but it's a polite form, okay? So it's a negotiation. When someone says, it doesn't work because this is too small. Okay, let's make it bigger. Yeah, but if I make it bigger, it collides with those other components. Let's assume for a second that we make it bigger. What are we going to do about it? What are we going to do to the other components to make that whole thing work? Is there a way? Yes, because if we change that, then we need to be allowed to change that other one and that other one. Or maybe we need to ask marketing to confirm that they are okay with that compromise. There's always a yes if and a what if. It's a negotiation. The moment someone in the room, now I'm talking like a brainstorming evangelist. The moment someone says no, we have a problem. Okay? So yes if, what if, let's assume for a second, let's make that. Now, does that sound difficult? I think all of that, everything I've been discussing until now, is super easy. Here's the catch. It's just humor. Don't take it seriously. Have fun, make jokes. Every single one of you was born with the skill of making jokes. I bet that about 80% of you have made caricatures of the teachers at high school. Me too. Okay? So, you know how to have fun. You know how to make jokes of yourself, how to make jokes of others, how to make pranks, build fake scenarios just so that someone gets caught, right? You know how to do that. So just do. Have fun. It's the same thing. Make jokes. I didn't say not to care. When I design a fall protection device, if the guy falls, he dies. So I care. That doesn't mean that I am freaking stressed and panicking and at the edge of burnout or depression for the 2 years of the development, right? I take it seriously. The outcome is very serious. The process can be fun. The process needs to be fun. And you have practiced it. So don't tell me you don't know how, right? You all have a lot of experience. And one last bit. It's like a language. You don't need to be good at it. We were talking Czech an hour ago, a bit more. Oops. I'm not good at that. So I'm not doing it when the subject matters because I care. But there are plenty of situations where I'm taking the risk and doing it. It's the same for problem solving, creative solutions. Just go for it, do it, risk it. What's going to happen? Like nobody's going to die when you are at your desk, right? Then you do the verification and validation stuff. But just practice. And enjoy trying is important because if you start a company, a startup of some sort, the probability that you survive 3 years is close to 0. Okay? Failure is part of life. If you need to win to be happy, you're going to be happy a couple of days in your life. But if you do sport and you enjoy training and you enjoy the race and the competition and the tournament, even when you lose, then you're going to be happy most of your life. So just take it easy, have fun, take all those tools and advice that you get from everyone as an adult, meaning you can question it, you can have fun with it, you can distort it, make jokes about me as much as you want, I don't care. As long as the outcome is something productive that doesn't hurt anybody and that gets you further. Does that make sense? Now it's your turn. So what are your questions? Or comments? Good. You need the hairy microphone.
Hello. I have a question about the topic with getting help by someone, because it can happen that I'm a freelancer, I'm a graphic designer, I'm a young graphic designer, so I need some skills to build in my career. So let's say I'm getting a career in a position in a studio and I'm led by an art director. And for example, I think in that case, the art director is going to help me a lot by changing the output so it's suitable for him as a desire, how to say, that it's, communicating with his, like a writing. So what is it, the difference between getting the help, because maybe it's also the case that I'm a little bit losing my creativity because I have to change something just based on the art director.
I see two things in there. So the first one, in that scenario, you made a design, a proposal, and the director sees it and says, "Oh my God, let me take this," and gives it to Eva to finish it. How do you feel?
Horrible.
Thank you. So if you, "Oh my God, let's ask Viscom or ChatGPT to do it," horrible, okay? But if he says, "This is wrong because it conveys that message and that's not what we want. This is disbalanced. Your page looks like it's falling, blah, blah, blah." He's giving you advice, but you fix it. Then you're learning. Mm-hmm. Okay? So that's one thing about the difference. Now about following rules and the guidance of the art director, yeah, that's the challenge. So, for example, in industrial design, it's the same story. There are brand guidelines, right? A brand has a form language. If you see a BMW in the street, you recognize that it's a BMW because it follows a certain set of rules. So the job of those guys at BMW is to take the rules, massage them, to get them closer to their own feeling of what the market needs. But that's, I think, one of the fundamental differences between a designer and an artist, is that the designer is at the service of someone else. You're trying to solve the problem of someone else. So your creativity, you need to be you, as I said, but you need to be you in the process of respecting the brand, meeting the expectations of the market, and fitting yourself into that. I would say again, it's like the cocoon and the butterfly. If you will if you have a strong you, if you have a strong personality, you will probably not manage to fit yourself fully in that thing. And that friction is what is going to make that brand progress. So you need to accept that you're going to have confrontations with the art director. And you need to accept that he's the boss. It's not really helpful, but like, yes, I recognize the challenge. And I don't have a solution apart from that negotiation all the time. So if the art director says your page is not balanced, like your graphics are pulling to the right, either he's right and it's wrong and you know it's wrong and you fix it, or you try to explain that you were trying to put some dynamic because we are in a country where people read from left to right, time goes from left to right, and so you made your page go to right to make it look like it's progressing, okay? So, and then he says, you're stupid, I don't agree with that. Then he's the boss and you do what he says. But maybe you educate him into something and he accepts it, and then you have made that brand progress.
Yes, that's a good point. That maybe it's a really nice way how to improve, and maybe also basically say to the art director that this is just my way of interpretation of the
But don't say it like this. Because when you say my way, then we get into the ego fight.
Okay.
And if he's a director, that means he's got an ego. So I've been director as well. So, don't say it like this. Just always talk about, experience outcome. Talk about your intentions. It is very difficult usually for designers, especially young ones, to separate the way they feel it from the intention to the benefit of the user or the benefit of the customer or the benefit of the society, okay? And the best arguments are when you describe the benefit for the other person. I'm a servant. I'm at the service of the telecom guy who goes on the tower to install an antenna. I'm trying to make his life easier. The question is not whether I like it or not. I used to work at Volvo Cars when I was like 27 years old. I remember I was in an agency and the boss tells me, tomorrow you go to Volvo Cars, here's the address, you have a 3-month contract, which turned out to be 3 years. So I arrive at Volvo and they make me visit the studio, right? I remember the feeling in the car on the way to Volvo Cars. My vision of the company at that time was a big diesel station wagon with a caravan and a dog, okay? And I was 27 years old, multi-recidivist at impulsive migration. I was not really fitting in the frame. And I was thinking, oh my God, I'm going to have to make big cars for old people. And then I arrive in the Volvo design studio and I see the prototypes and the next generation of cars. I'm like, this is not at all the image that I have. So the point is, as a designer in the car going there, I had the feeling that I don't fit, but I had the duty to go there and try to fit. And me trying to fit and not succeeding is the way I contributed to make that brand move in a certain way. If they had hated it, they would have fired me at the end of the 3-month contract, but they renewed the contract. So I believe I must have had the right kind of friction with the right kind of people. But you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So you feel something is not what you want to do, but the boss is the boss. The customer is the boss of the boss. And you're going to have to find that middle ground. And the right and wrong, how do I find the acceptable middle ground? Who am I serving? The user, the customer, the guy who's not in the room. But he's going to look at the poster or use the device or read the book or listen to the music or watch the video that you're creating. And that's the person you serve, and defending the interest of that person is the best way to convince the people in the room that you're doing the right thing. Does that answer?
Yes, thank you.
If you don't have questions, I ask questions. How much time do we have, actually?
About 20 minutes.
Ah, plenty of time. So talking about assumptions, let's take an example. You are all designers in a design agency, and there is an offering manager, a marketing person from a big brand, let's say a brand of beer. We're in Czechia, okay? So a brand of beer. And the guy comes and says, we are going to have a new campaign, and I want you to design POSM, point of sale materials. So let's say decoration inside the shop, right? Banners and things, whatever, POSM. And we want to convince people that our brand of beer is perfect for barbecue season. We want people to believe that, like when they when they hear the word barbecue, they see our bottle of beer in their mind. Okay, we want to make that association. That's the brief. Now, what are the assumptions that you are making? How do you understand the brief? What are you going to do? I'm going to ask more questions, maybe to like trigger things. Oh, someone wants to say something? Please go ahead. I like that. So, in which kind of store are we? If I'm a guy from a big brand of beer and I say I want my beer to be associated with barbecue, and you are going to design point of sale material, you visualize something, you start having ideas of what you're going to do. Where do you visualize it?
Supermarkets.
So that's an assumption, right? It's a valid assumption. Like there's nothing wrong with it, but maybe I had in mind that we do a campaign in gas stations. Or maybe I had in mind that we do a campaign at Macro so that the guy who has a kiosk somewhere is buying there and selling my beer when he's doing a barbecue. Like, I don't know. So that's a question that you need to ask when the marketing person gives you the brief. You need to ask, which channel are we in? What retail channel are we in? And then the marketing person said that they want you to design point of sale material. What do you think about that? What is the goal of the project? Someone, what is the goal of the project that I just laid out?
It can be either like a brand self-awareness in society or making bigger sales in some season.
It's both, right? So raise brand awareness, absolutely, and connect in the collective unconscious of the society, the fact that that brand relates with barbecue. That's the goal. The goal is not a banner, a sticker on the floor, a special lamp, a little thing, a hanger in front of the shelves, or to create a special edition multi-pack. That's the output. The outcome is that when someone says barbecue, everybody in the street thinks, oh, startup ramen, right? I mean, that would be the ideal outcome. So your job is not to design point of sale material. Your job is to tattoo the name of the brand in the brain of people who barbecue. And you cannot do that physically, so you're going to find ways to do that. The way we did, because that's a real story, the way we did was to recommend to put bottles in the meat section at the supermarket. So at the place where I'm choosing the skewers and the sausages and the spicy sausages, and here are beer bottles in the fridge. So that whether I want or not, that logo is yelling at me while I'm choosing the sausage. And if the meat section is before the drinks section in the supermarket on my path, guess what happens? I buy the correct brand. And then, of course, you talked about improved sales and revenue. That's the real objective of every project, okay? But so you see what I'm saying? Someone makes the assumption that the way to do marketing in the supermarket is to make banners and hangers and stickers. That's an assumption. That's a habit. That's a decision based on the usual stuff. But there is no thinking behind. And your job is to bring the thinking. So again, the goal, the experience outcome is, when I say barbecue, you think a brand of beer. That's the real goal. And if you can do it just by negotiating with the supermarket that they fit 6 bottles in the fridge, it's pretty cheap. Eh?
So, any question?
Is there a part in your job that you hate?
Oh, you don't want to get me started. Yes. Well, hate. I mean, that's a strong word. Yeah. Hate would make me violent. I don't hate my job. But let's say frustrations, definitely, right? So designers are always too late. And it's not the fault of the designer. I mean, I'm invited to fix a problem. Guess why there is a problem? Because somebody else started it, right? And that somebody else happened to have the wrong profession or the wrong profile to make assumptions and guess and believe that they know it all. I don't know it all. My job is to ask the right questions, not to have the answers. But so frustration is when there is already a prototype and it's not that good in the you ask customers if they like it and not quite, and now you have just a few weeks to fix it, and part of the tooling has already been ordered, and it's too late to make a significant change, but you still have to make a miracle. So that's a real frustration in the career of a designer. For me, in the last few years, I would say a big frustration is about communication and teamwork. So let me take a step back. 1998, I'm in Sweden, first year master's degree. And we are a class of 11 students from 9 countries. That means 2 guys feel good and everybody else has a cultural shock. And, and we have a sketching class with an amazing teacher. The guy is a superstar. So he comes and in the morning, he arrives in the morning on the Monday, he starts telling us, okay, today I'm going to show you this techniques that you don't want to know about because that's dinosaur stuff, right, with pastels and fixative and all that stuff. Anyway, the guy is teaching us, he makes a demo in front of us. In an hour, he makes an A3 page look fantastic. And then he makes another one and another one. And at 4 in the afternoon, he says, okay, for tomorrow, I want 4 pages, A3, all of them filled with a full color rendering, whatever, we were in the car design section, so whatever car you want. And it has to be on the wall at 9 a.m. when I arrive. And don't even try to dare to arrive after me. So that's the brief. And we are like, what? It's 4 in the afternoon, and tomorrow we need to have like 4 full color renderings. So guess what happens? The next morning we are there with our things on the wall, on time, kind of standing, hitting ourselves to stay awake. And the guy is there and he goes, who did that? So one guy says me, and then he goes, who is on the left? It's me. He's like, okay, you comment on his drawing, and you have to say something positive, something negative, and an advice on how to make it better. So me, the arrogant French-speaking Belgian, having to give feedback to an American from New York. And I didn't really like the guy on top of that. That's an exercise. And you do that with like 3 hours of sleep. Really bad idea. The thing is that that teacher did that to us again and again and again and again. So by the end of the master, we were all completely relaxed with the idea that someone is going to criticize our work. And that, people, is probably the number one skill you're going to need in your career. To hear negative feedback from others. Not take personally what they say. They're not talking about you. They're talking about your sketch or your mock-up or your design. I can talk negatively for hours about the things that I have designed that have been on the market. There's always a way to make better, right? So you need to get used to that. And communication is super important. And so when you are in a team where people don't talk together, don't exchange information, hide their sketch because you might steal their idea. Come on. That's just horrible. So frustration at work. I admire and envy the people who operate in an open source kind of environment where they're just sharing everything for free. I haven't found a way to do that and live from it somehow yet. But that is so beautiful. Like that, I think, brings so much more satisfaction at work. If you can do great stuff and give it for free, and then people take the time to write to you to say, oh, I have copied your thing, I downloaded it and I have done it and it's fantastic and I love it. I have a friend like that who is OpenShoe. Anybody knows that? So you're going to Google that later. Juraj Šuška. He was teaching here. You must know that guy. Yeah. So you can download from his website the drawings and all the instructions on how to make shoes. And make your own shoes. And last time I had lunch with the guy, he was wearing his own homemade shoes, right? I mean, this is real. This is not nonsense. I admire that person. You have no idea. He does that because he plays for the love of the game, right? If you can achieve that in your career, you're the man. I think that's probably the frustration. Not being given a chance to do the real work because you are involved too late in the process, and then you have to deal with that with people who don't want to collaborate with you. And it's not about me. I mean, I understand some people may hate me, but they don't talk together either, right? So I'm not the only problem.
Well, maybe because some of you have to go, we have the last 2 questions. Okay?
So I wanted to ask about constructive and subjective criticism. I don't know if it would be better to provide a direct example.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, basically, imagine you've written a book and you have a specific ending in mind that serves a specific purpose for a connection. Like it's a book series and you want it to continue into a next series. And it's designed in a way to build up suspense on purpose. But then you have a proofreader, a test reader, and they tell you that they absolutely hate the ending.
That's what you want.
Yeah, but I would like to know why. And when I asked them, they told me because it was a cliffhanger ending. And I get it, I hate cliffhangers as well. But it's very difficult for me because I had a reason and a vision, And even to this point, I understand why they dislike it, because they told me their reasoning was because it feels forced. Because if it's a part of a series, the intention is you're going to read the rest of it. But even still, that's also part of my perspective as well, that even if it's a part of a series, it doesn't matter if it's a cliffhanger ending or not.
So
Because-
obviously I haven't read your book,
Yeah, that's true.
but what I'm guessing, right, or the questions I would ask. How, you said it feels like forced or a bit artificial, that cliffhanger. So question maybe, if you had a thermometer of cliffhangers, right, and from perfectly legitimate to completely overkill, where are you, and compare with The Lord of the Rings? I mean, whatever super successful example, okay, because the fact that they are successful means they have done something right. And I'm from the guys who had to watch the movie and then wait a whole year, try to find a way to watch the movie again to remember it before going to the cinema for the number 2, and then wait a whole year. So if they can do that and become rich out of it, you can as well. If on the thermometer of the subtlety of the cliffhanger, are you near that, or are you way out there or down here? Yeah? So it's about assessing the quality of your work, but I would not question the idea of having a cliffhanger at the end, because that's the whole point of the style.
Yeah. Like, it's so difficult to tell sometimes. That's the thing, is like, it was supposed to be designed as a cliffhanger because it was just supposed to like add some more, like, the whole point of the cliffhanger was that the first chapter of the next book was specifically designed to go straight into action. So I didn't want to waste time adding like the quote-unquote cliffhanger at the beginning, because it would be a new book and everything, and I don't want it to like end on like a very nice happy note when it's gonna go wrong later anyways. So I thought it would be better to just shock the reader immediately, so that they immediately get into reading the next one.
So again, it's about the quality, the balance. And I just want to take, or is there another question? Because I can make another comment on that foundation. When it comes to innovation, there are companies like Citroën that got bankrupt twice because they forgot a simple principle: is familiarity. If you do something different, really new, radical, real innovation, you need to leave in there something familiar, because you want the user to feel confident enough to go explore those bits that are new. So if you do something that is never seen before for real, yeah, 5 geeks are going to try it, and the rest of the world is going to think you're crazy. And that familiarity, it doesn't need to be trivial. If you look at you need to go to the museum for that, but if you look at the first iPods, what are the dimensions of the first iPod? The size of an audio tape. And why is the interface like DJing? So this is the time when music stopped being physical. You realize that? MP3, and it's not, the iPod was not the first, right? Apple did not invent that. But as I said before, there was haptic feedback to everything. When I was 17, 18, I would tell my parents, I'm going to buy a CD. I never bought music. I bought tapes, I bought vinyls, I bought CDs. And then arrives MP3, and suddenly you buy music. There's no support. There is a player. And that first very successful player is the player that conveyed by its form language and its user interface subjective emotional references to all the known references, like DJing, like the audio tape, which is the last support you had before going into that. Make sense? So it's about that balance of familiarity and pushing the cork a bit too far in the bottle.
So, any question more?
If you Google my name, you will find 2 people. So I think it's easy to find me. Feel free to reach out.
Okay, you seem like we have to go. So, thank you very much.
I thank you for the opportunity.
I think it was really necessary to hear it. I hope that, yes, you are satisfied, you all.